Was Game 1's blowout loss a bad sign or a bad game for the Mavericks?
It was a bad game for the Mavericks. I think, when you think about all the new faces that they have on their team for us being their first time in the NBA Finals, look, if you've never been to the NBA Finals or experienced it as a player, it's a different type of atmosphere. And if you're not prepared for it, you could get punched in the mouth. And we saw the Celtics do that last night. Think about who's on the Celtics roster. Al Horford, he's been to the finals. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both been to the finals. Drew Holiday is the champion. They know what it feels like. They know what it takes. You're dealing with so many outside distractions, but I will say this, Molly. Before the series started, I said Kristaps Porzingis is the most important player in this series, and last night showed that. But on top of that, Jaylen Brown was the best player on the floor, and this dude is on a damn mission right now. Ever since he got snubbed from being All-NBA, or he felt like he should have made the All-NBA team, he has taken his game to another level. And I know we've been talking about Luka, we've been talking about Tatum and Kyrie, who's going to be the best player in this series. Jaylen Brown, once again, reminded us last night, do not disrespect my name because I have the capability of being the best player in this series. And the way that he dominated on both ends of the floor, the passion, the tenacity that he played with, he didn't have popular plays. He had powerful plays. Plays that was demoralizing for the Dallas Mavericks. So look, I got this series going in 7. I got the Celtics winning in 7. But I must say, Dallas got to get their stuff together. Because what I saw last night from Jaylen Brown in particular and the mission that he's on, this Celtic team is standing on business right now.
Go ahead, Andre.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to go with,
Go ahead, UD. Go ahead.
Andre.
Go ahead. UD, go ahead. Go ahead, UD.
Okay.
We'll take it after.
Well, I'm going to say this, Perk. I'm going to agree with you 1,000%. When the man walked in with the all black on dressed like Blade, I knew he meant business. But he's an alpha. He's the alpha to me. To me, there's levels to alphas, and he's the alpha in that locker room. Yes, Jason Tatum is an alpha, but to me, there's levels to alpha, and I think he's the alpha in that locker room. Soon as the game was over and they won, he was the guy that said, hey, don't get cute. It's only one game. So he's already setting the tone. But for Dallas, I think it is just one game, but I would be concerned because they only had 3 guys in double figures, and Luka was one with 30. So you talk about Kyrie Irving and how unstoppable those guys have been. Boston definitely figured something out with switching those pick and rolls. Everybody is staying at home and making him try to make shots over size when it was Al Horford. And then on the other end of it, they were attacking Luka on defense. So Dallas has some things they need to figure out, but it was only game 1. It doesn't matter if you lose by 100 or you lose by 1. I expected Boston to come out and win game 1. I expected Dallas to be a little timid because that's their first time being there. I expect them to be better. Boston struggled game 2. I expect the Dallas Mavericks to show up in game 2, and not just Dallas. That look like the Dallas Cowboys. My bad, Stephen A.
Hey, I ain't mad about it. Go ahead.
I feel the same way. I agree with Perk and UD. I think it was a bad game. And we've also seen this from the Mavericks in game 1. They lost game 1 to the Clippers. They lost game 1 to OKC. I know those two teams are significantly different than the Boston Celtics, especially with the way Kristaps Porzingis is playing, which I did not expect. I don't know if anyone, even Boston fans, I don't know if anyone expects Kristaps Porzingis to put up 20 points in 20 minutes with the efficiency that he did, to move his feet on defense, to slide, to react, to sprint back and block a shot. I don't know if any of us were expecting that. I'm still saying it's a bad game for the Mavs, and they're going to respond. We've seen them drop game 1 and still win the series twice so far in the playoffs.
My answer to this question, ladies and gentlemen, is both. It was a bad game and a bad sign. Let me tell you why I feel this way. Yeah, it was a bad game by the Dallas Mavericks because Kyrie Irving was a virtual no-show. Let's get that out the way. We expected better from him, particularly in this game. We didn't get better. And obviously, you knew what Luka was going to do, but you knew he was going to need assistance. P.J. Washington, I expected more from him. We didn't get much from him, okay? Daniel Gafford looked small. I don't know why, okay? But he just looked small. And then you look at Derrick Jones. Obviously, you expected him to have more of an impact, 2 of 9 shooting. But more importantly, you expected him to have an impact defensively. I didn't see any of that yesterday. So I wasn't happy with what I saw from the Dallas Mavericks. It was a bad game. I get that. Here's why I say both is applicable here. I picked the Mavs. You picked the Mavs. UD picked the Mavs. before this series began, I heard Perk say whoever's coming out of the Western Conference is going to win the championship before ultimately you basically said, yo, it's going to go 7 and Boston's going to win this. Not knocking you for it, Perk. I understand it. I'm just highlighting it. The reason why we had trepidation about the Boston Celtics for one reason and one reason only, Porzingis' health.
Right, exactly.
I didn't think, listen, they were talking about how his injury was similar to what KD had when he was in the finals against Toronto. Well, what happened? He was out for a lengthy period of time. He comes back for a quarter and a half, and ultimately he tears his Achilles. So I'm thinking about Porzingis, who ain't the greatest individual with lateral movement to begin with. I'm thinking about how he's going to be attacked, how they're going to work out, how they're going to work his legs and test him or what have you. But they were attacking him in a fashion that I thought was beneficial to him. You can't go into Kristaps Porzingis, who's 7'3", and think you're going to elevate over him. You got to get him moving laterally. You got to get him moving those legs. They weren't doing that. Instead, one person tries to dunk on them. Derrick Jones tries to make a reverse layup on them. And Luke is going into the teeth of a defense like he's supposed to. But this is a 7'3" shot blocker here. And then you got smaller dudes, you know, that he's posting up, whether it's from the free throw line or somewhere close to the free throw line, and he's shoving them aside. It wasn't just that he was shooting over them. He was shoving them aside. And so I'm looking at his strength, and I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? And it kind of threw me off. I don't care about his 20 points. I care about those 18 points in the first half. I care about those 2 to 3 blocks he had in the first half. He was so formidable. I said, damn, we knew that if that Porzingis was healthy and showed up, nobody was having a chance against Boston this year.
What do you think was the biggest reason for the Mavericks' blowout loss?
Boston crowd. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. I think, when I think about Draymond Green, for example, I think about one of the most strong-willed, mentally individuals in the game today, UD, Perk. That's how I view Draymond Green. I bring up that name because if you recall, he even confessed that his first couple of experiences in the finals against Boston, he was rattled. We want to look at Kyrie Irving. Let me tell you something about.
Wait, I have a question. So is the answer really Kyrie, because Kyrie was the one that got rattled by the Boston crowd?
No, I'm saying the answer is the Boston crowd, because the Boston crowd rattled. You said what's the biggest reason?
Yeah.
It was
but
Kyrie.
I'm saying, was it really Kyrie? Because he allowed the crowd to rattle.
Right. I'm saying, yeah, the crowd rattled them. And the reason why I bring that up is because we may have our differences with the kind of decisions Kyrie has made over the years or whatever the case may be. But what I've repeatedly stated about him, fellas, and Andraya, is that he's a good guy. And he's not a bad person. And so what happens is that when you go and a crowd has venom for you, like Boston has for him, because he's supposed to be in a Boston Celtics uniform. He was supposed to be the one helping them there. And he left. And he went to Brooklyn. And he engaged in the histrionics of stepping on the parquet floor and the leprechaun and doing all of this stuff after he departed and everything like that. You knew there was going to be vitriol aimed in his direction, and they clearly booed him. That's all they did. But they booed the living hell out of him. Now, obviously, that's not the only thing. The Boston Celtics, who've got height at a multitude of positions, particularly with Porzingis in the middle. You can't just come into the lane and throw the floaters that Kyrie usually throws out there. So you're going to have to bring something extra to your repertoire in order to offset what Boston's bringing to you. But I also think the environment played a role, because we have to remind the audience, Boston, TD Bank Garden, for a Celtics game is one of the best environments in all of sports. They can be quieted, as UD and the Miami Heat showed you in the past. But when you roll up into Boston, them peeps are ready to support that team. Yeah. And they will distract. You got to be strong mentally, and your focus has to be elevated to offset the venom and the hostility they throw in your direction, because they are aiming to distract you to benefit their team. And I thought last night Kyrie didn't come as ready as we expected, which I found a bit disappointing, because you played there as a team, as a member of their team, and as a visitor. You know better than most what that environment entailed. He didn't seem ready for the moment. I don't think that'll happen again, but he didn't seem ready for the moment last night.
Dre, do you feel like Kyrie was the biggest reason for the Mavs loss?
No, I do not, because even if Kyrie was ready for the moment and played well, say he played a little bit better, he was more efficient, he got into his bag a little bit more, the Mavs still had no answer defensively for the Celtics. They had none. If we were doing a multiple choice quiz and we said, all right, are we going to get a Jaylen Brown drive, are we going to get a Kristaps mismatch, are we going to get an offensive rebound or an extra pass 3, there would be an extra one at the bottom that said all the above. The Celtics got everything they wanted on the offensive end. They have too many weapons. They have a ton of size. They make the extra pass. They got into the paint to kick out for threes. I know they hit a lot of threes, but they took great threes, wide open threes. They made 16.
And 7 guys hit 2.
But they got great threes. Look at these. This is off of a paint touch and an extra pass, and nobody's around Derek White for that shot. The defense for the Mavs, they have to find a way because the Celtics did 2 things. They sought out Luka, and they found him, and they attacked him, and they played together on the offensive end. So the Mavs defensively, they have to figure out an answer for how they want to defend the Celtics, especially with Kristaps Porzingis.
Kirk?
Well, look, I'm gonna say yes. Kyrie was the biggest reason why the Mavs lost last night. Because who has been the leader on this team? It's been Kyrie Irving. We've been praising and giving him his flowers about his leadership, and he's earned that. Now it's time for him to take his leadership to another level. We're talking about the biggest stage, y'all. We're talking about them playing against one of the most historical franchises in sports, in the Boston Celtics. We know how rowdy it could get in that arena. They're going to call you everything but a child of God. The only person that's on that team that has final experience and championship experience outside of their head coach, Jay Kidd, is Kyrie. Kyrie knows this. He knows that he has to be better, right? He knows that he needs to be more vocal. It's not about the make or miss shots. Do I think Kyrie Irving is going to go 6 for 19 from the field again in Game 2? I don't. He has some great looks, but I didn't see the Kyrie Irving that I've been seeing throughout this postseason. I didn't see the Kyrie Irving talking and communicating. I didn't see the Kyrie Irving pulling guys together, doing a dead ball or doing free throws and saying, hey, look, let's get it together. It was times throughout this postseason where I saw Kyrie Irving talking and communicating defensive coverages when he wasn't even involved in it, okay? And when you're talking about being on the road, we go back to Game 5 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yes, others played well, but Luka and Kyrie Irving were the ones that took you home. On the road, your superstars are going to take you home. At home, your role players step up. Kyrie Irving was the biggest reason for that loss. He knows it, and he got to elevate his leadership even more at this point when you're talking about being on this stage of the NBA Finals.
Go ahead, UD.
I'm with you, Perk, 1,000%. Kyrie has to play better. I think of it as an analogy where you got a bunch of kids that's going on a field trip, and they're chaperone. You need your chaperone. Kyrie has been the chaperone through this field trip that these young boys have been going through these finals. Jason Kidd was speaking at halftime, and during his speech, he almost said, we acting like we ain't been here before. Then he caught himself and realized, damn, we ain't been here before. He's been there before. Kyrie has been there before, but none of those guys have been there before.